Hey everyone, welcome back to Press Start to Play. थोड़ा impromptu recording. Sushir and I were talking, and then I had this thought कि we should talk about one of the aspects that is happening with games these days. कि नहीं ये layoffs वगैरह के around एक reason जो है कि ना like not main reason, but like consumer side से at least a reason why like maybe too many games are not succeeding is because there are too many games. And I think Game Pass itself is kind of proof of that. कि there are too many games क्योंकि like why you need a service like that to kind of highlight games and like even games जो मतलब अच्छे होंगे and developer को पता है कि यार this game is awesome and like in a different time जब इतने games नहीं it like you know Sushir, you were telling me the number of games on Steam, right, releasing in a year.
Right. So before I start saying all that, and I think I try and do that like every time in any video. Let's start this with a disclaimer. I'm not complaining that there are too many games.
Oh yeah.
Don't think of it as like ये
Yeah.
complain है मेरा. But the thing is that I'm one of the, like, how will I say, blessed ones. Like, there are very few people out there. We are part of the media. We are also part of the ecosystem around the world who have like access to multiple platforms. So I have access to a PlayStation. I have access to Steam, and Manas has access to PlayStation, Steam, Nintendo, Xbox. We have access to multiple systems, and that's why we are a very small minority with a larger number of players. And for some people, like for Ayush and other people, they like go through one game at a time. And I do understand there are lots of players out there right now who go through one game at a time, complete it till. Hello, did my voice cut out?
Yeah, till it stopped.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry. So, and they move on from one game to another, but we play like multiple games in one particular day itself. So I know I'm a part of a very small minority when I say this, but it is true that the number of games and in turn also good games is just skyrocketed, multiplied by such a factor that it's just beyond any kind of measure right now. So, for example, I'll just give you an idea of the number of games which have been releasing, and this is statistics from Steam itself. Let's take it up from. You want me to take it up from COVID? Let's take it up from before that.
Yeah.
So pre-COVID, it was 2019, 7,711 games released that year.
Okay, that sounds reasonable.
Reasonable.
A lot, but reasonable. Okay.
Not lot reasonable. 2020 skyrockets to 9,394.
What? One second.
7,000 to 9,000.
Okay. That's quite a jump. Okay.
2021, it does the same thing again, 9,924.
Okay.
2022, it goes up to 10,341 games.
Okay.
2023 was a mammoth year. 12,000 games released that year. And it's 2024. We have already seen the release of 2,400 games.
Damn, dude.
So I think this time around, it might not maybe match 2023, but we are looking at numbers which will be quite close to that. I think it will still go up to 11, 12,000.
Yeah.
And now let's talk about the monthly active users, which have been increasing year on year from 95 million to 2019 to 2021. It was 132 million.
Oof.
And I think right now, I'm pretty sure that it has like breached 200 plus.
Damn.
So
double se zyada.
Yeah. So we are going through like multiple games, and we are going through a huge number of users who are coming into the ecosystem, but also the fact that we particularly also know it ourselves. There are games which are really good, but in the avalanche of the number of games which come out, it gets buried. And then maybe like a year or two later, it gets rediscovered again. And then people are like, oh, why wasn't this a hit? Because there is just a particular amount of money that everyone has to spend on games. Games is a luxury, one of the highest forms of luxury that is possible in the entertainment field. And there's only some money to go around for that. And I mean, I shouldn't also say this in the manner like we are also going through a kind of a recession in a way where people are not talking about it, but we are going through some kind of a monetary crunch that is causing all people to reduce their spending, all companies to reduce their spending. Everybody's tightening their belt. So I do agree with Manas when he says that there are way too many games. Because today, on the day that we are recording this, I think there have been 5 banger games
Oh yeah,
released, indie games today,
yeah.
today itself. And I just, I haven't even got through with the ones that are released 2 3 weeks back. Like I'm like, yeah.
इसमें
So yeah,
इसमें सुशीर आई bring up the point you made कि ना like yeah you're not complaining. मुझे लगता है even I'm not complaining, and I think it's true in a way कि I think realistically not anyone is complaining क्योंकि the example that you gave कि ना we play to like multiple games, but in general like normally कोई खेल रहा है वो एक गेम खेल रहा है through a month खत्म करके next game खेल रहा है. So he's तो not even aware of like many of these games. So, like he's also not complaining क्योंकि he's enjoying like he has so many options, he's enjoying picking
true.
and choosing. है ना. तो वहाँ पे आई थिंक द प्रॉब्लम यही है कि देर आर टू मेनी गेम्स एंड गेम पास इज ऑल्सो एन एग्जाम्पल ऑफ दिस क्योंकि लाइक बिग गेम्स समथिंग लाइक मैनरलॉर्ड्स like a sure shot guarantee,
Yeah.
it doesn't need to be on game pass, है ना. And even something like Sea of Stars जो मुझे लगा game pass, and I think the developers said कि they were like very happy कि it's on game pass, and I am happy for those developers to get the extra money from Microsoft, but
Right.
but then you look
I
at
think
something like a
Sea of
Remnant.
Stars,
Go on.
Sea of Stars was one of those games which released both on
Both, yeah, one of the first games.
yeah.
PS
First
and
games both
Xbox.
on the yeah.
Yeah. And even जैसे you look at something like a Remnant का मैंने जब देखा था ना कि it was a big hit at launch and it was selling a lot also. I think it sold like 1 or 2 million copies
Right.
pretty
Right.
soon. तो जब उसको Game Pass पे आने का टाइम आया तो like there was no like real announcement before it, कि ना कोई build up या hype नहीं था. Like they tried to kind of bury it almost क्योंकि they could see कि like Game Pass is not helping you sell your games वाला वो. एंड मतलब ऑल आई एम सेइंग इज कि मैं गेम पास की बुराई करते हुए नहीं करूँ, लाइक कंज्यूमर का फायदा हो रहा है, दैट्स गुड, लाइक एटलीस्ट लाइक उस टाइम वाले पर्सपेक्टिव से. बट आई फील कि लाइक अ लॉट ऑफ दीस गेम्स आर कमिंग टू गेम पास क्योंकि दे नॉट समथिंग लाइक एन ईस्टवर्ड कि ना दे नॉट श्योर कि they'll even if it's a great game eastward na like beautiful art, काफी whimsical like good story also, great gameplay actually, मतलब it's like a gem like a Sea of Stars ना जो काफी मतलब बिक सकता है, but because the market is so saturated like even something like that comes to Game Pass, and I feel that's a good example of कि like there are just too many games, कि ना like a lot of these companies not seeing the right kind of profits, and वो profit chasing के around तो अलग ही problem है. But like these games are not selling too much because like you said number of players also doubled, but they're playing like different games and then playing it for a longer time. Ki a lot of games that like एक दिन में 5 ऐसे banger indie आ रहे, like who's going to really play them, like
Right.
other than reviewers or like select few will try them, but like realistically वो सारे खेले जा रहा है, like it's not like a market that's even available.
Yeah, and when Manas, when you're talking about a saturated market, you should always understand that in a saturated market, even marketing and promoting your game becomes more expensive because then everybody else is actually also vying for people's eyeballs and wanting to spend their money to get to you at a particular point of time, and like 30, 40, $50 जो price point में लोग sell करने मांग रहे हैं, they want to target you and they want to get to you and stuff like that. It just become, I think, selling games has become more difficult.
Yeah.
And with the onslaught of good games that are coming up, and I'm not talking about all games in general, I'm just saying that maybe perhaps we are also seeing a higher output of good games. And that is maybe my perspective about that.
नहीं, there is no doubt. वही तो ना कि like problem talent या quality में भी नहीं है ना. Like we have great talent, like again something like an Eastward ना, like it's made by a really talented developer, Sea of Stars,
right?
है ना.
Yeah, let's talk about this month itself, Manas, and I just want to point out some of the games that have released. Maybe you'll have some opinion about them. Abiotic Factor released.
Yeah, no opinion. Didn't get the time to play.
Indica, great reviews all over, but like lots of people haven't got around to it. There has been, hold on for a second,
इनमें से कुछ like you mentioning these names ना, मैं उनके Steam page पे जाता हूँ expecting to see like 10,000 reviews, क्योंकि I remember that happening like a lot with these indies like maybe 5 years ago, and अब मैं देखता हूँ like 300 reviews, like something like an indie का 700 reviews. I am surprised कि like it's such a big difference, and I think it's come like if you picture it back, like जब indie was like really booming and it looked like indie will be the real future, it was Bastion वगैरह के time पे, जब वो Xbox arcade वगैरह था, and like those games you would like hear like about them for months at times, क्योंकि उतना space था for them to really thrive in the conversation also.
There was a lot of breathing space that
Yeah.
people were getting. So, for example, I think Hades 2, Shadow dropped.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, and then, hold on for a second. There has been V Rising, which went out of early access.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Then today itself, we are talking about Little Kitty Big City. Got some good positive reviews. Animal Well. I think you have been playing
Yeah,
that a
I
little
tried
bit,
it a
and
little bit.
we'll talk about that. There has been Pro Country and Dream Engines Nomad Cities, which is about like building cities up in the air. Uh, it's just I don't know. Like a game dropped, Instruments of Destruction,
Oh
which
yeah.
is like a completely procedural kind of thing where you're going around making machines and breaking stuff. Homeworld 3, and I think I want to justify it in the fact that right because of that, like a game like the Rogue Prince of Persia is supposed to be the 14th,
Oh
and
shit.
they put out a message saying that we are delaying it by a week or two. We're going
Oof.
to release it this week, but it's just that there are way too many games, and they also said they're playing Hades and stuff. So yeah, it's a good joke, but I do understand the pressure that can mount with the kind of games that are coming up. It has been a fantastic week, and it's
Yeah.
it's going to be a incredible month as well. We have had smaller releases like No Rest for the Wicked uh, getting out on early access. Uh, I just I I mean, previously it was like this many number of indies in a whole year that
Yeah.
probably
Oh
that you
yeah.
would get into,
Yeah.
and that's what, like, we talk about this in a sense from like the journalistic perspective. Of we are not getting to try out all these games and stuff like that, and maybe by the end of the year when it's time for like game of the year, it might turn out like five of us might have ended up playing completely different
Yeah.
set of games altogether and come up with like a list that maybe the other person hasn't even heard of. And I think that's what makes it so difficult, that the onslaught is so huge and the number of good games vying for your eyeballs and for controllers and keyboards is so much that it's difficult. It's a difficult industry, and it's going to get more difficult, I feel.
Yeah. नहीं, last year I think was the first time when I really consciously thought to myself कि यार ये मैं सारे try करने का भी नहीं सोच सकता. Like I won't even be able to properly try all of them. Let alone like get into them properly and enjoy them. तो मैंने कहा like I genuinely started like जैसे आज ये 5-6 गेम्स आए, मैं सबको देखा, एक बार ट्रेलर देखा and मैं कहा नहीं, मैं इनमें से कोई भी नहीं खेलने वाला अभी. Like there's no point. That's just like मैं कुछ भी नहीं enjoy कर पाऊँ. It's too much. Too many games. I mean it's a great thing in one way, but I think it's affecting how the market is flourishing also in one way. Like just it's been expanded too much, and then एक तरफ तो there are these good games that are going under the radar
Yeah.
maybe, but also दूसरी तरफ like corporate उस greed के चक्कर में there are a lot of just products being made, like just ऐसे ना, just nothing really meaningful or thoughtful about them, just to kill your time थोड़ा सा वैसे ना. It's just really saturated.
And think about the range in which games actually can be made, and there's a very clear parallel to TV shows and every other thing that we have seen before in the entertainment industry. Games can right now be made at like sub million to
Yeah.
300
Yeah.
350
Oh.
million. That's the range. Like कोई गेम 1 मिलियन के बजट के नीचे बन रहा है, और कोई गेम इट रिक्वायर्स 6-7 years, $300 billion of budget, and you know definitely there is a risk factor to it, and definitely companies will try to do some form of risk mitigation by wanting to shop it to the maximum number of people. And but it's just that gaming itself is such it's such a product, different from a product. It's an artistic endeavor that these people are all vying for, to showcase their emotions, to showcase their art.
Yeah.
It's such a difficult prospect to see some of them just like get lost, and that's the thing that I fear.
Yeah.
That many of these games are not getting the dues.
Yeah. And Sushil, like when you brought up कि मतलब games are like an art form separate from the other entertainment mediums, movies and all, मैं तो ये भी बोलूँगा कि maybe उनमें भी वो same problem हो कि ना,
Yeah.
like over saturation with like low quality, or maybe just over saturation in general हो. लेकिन
Right.
like I mean we mostly concern ourselves with games, तो
Yeah.
we're
Yeah,
talking-
like in that sense, something like think about it, Manas. We have been with each other doing the podcast for a long, long time. And I know for certain that, after a particular time, you zoned out completely out of the whole Marvel, MCU
Yeah.
cinematic, stuff. And then I do understand why that happened, because a lot of people went through that kind of क्या बोलते हैं, like, yeah, I don't care anymore, right?
Yeah.
It's just getting too complicated. It feels like a product. It feels like they're trying to sell me something, and it doesn't have those emotions in it
Yeah.
anymore. So you moved on and you went on to see like smaller stuff and the other, things. And I think the gaming industry is also going through that, because there is only so much of emotion, press F to pay respects that a game can bring forward
Yeah.
in $300 million. But and the smaller games, just get lost.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it might sound bad, but वही मैंने पिछले बारी भी शायद बोला था ना कि like maybe some of these games don't need to be made.
Yeah.
And मैं ये भी नहीं कह रहा हूँ कि like don't don't employ those people, but थोड़ा उनसे ही पूछ लो कि like what their vision and what they would like to make, instead of just going like maybe जैसे Redfall हो गया, even not in a bad way, like I enjoyed Starfield, but अभी तो नैरेटिव थोड़ा इतना सावर हो गया उसके अराउंड की पीपल आर क्वेश्चनिंग कि शुड बेथेस्डा हैव इवन मेड स्टारफील्ड, एंड आई हैव एंजॉयड बेथेस्डास गेम्स, तो मुझे उनको इतना सफरिंग भी नहीं देखना था. आई एम आल्सो थिंक हाँ यार चल नहीं बनाते तो भी चलता है यार, मतलब मुझे तो मजा आ गया, लेकिन मुझे तो बहुत गेम्स खेल के मजा आ जाता. तो
and I just want to like peek a little at the narrative that is going on with some developers also. I think we saw it with Harvey Smith, we saw it with Bukaba, and some other people talking about it. They were talking about there must be a sweet spot into
yeah,
how much of a scope should a game be, what are the number of people that it can employ, what is the audience that it is targeting, and how much it's wanting. I think there is a sweet spot to like between 300 and like sub 1, and that I think because, and this might sound a little unfair, Manas, where triple A is not being made in 2 to 3 years previously, some years
yeah,
back they were being made,
yeah.
right? So are we saying that triple A's can't be made during that time if we let go of certain aspects that we have taken for granted?
Yeah, नहीं, I agree. कुछ तो मुझे लगता है जैसे even some of the tech that is being pushed, I mean I love to see it, मुझे graphics पसंद है, but हाँ मतलब you see a stylistic game really thrive after so many years. तो लगता है with a tighter budget, I don't know.
Let's scope it down a little further, and I'll drop some names, and I want you to go ahead and tell me like, yeah, this is not possible today, and this people will not like it today. So a game like Mass Effect 2, right? Or a
Yeah,
game like Fallout 3, or a game like okay, let's pick another smaller RPG. Let's take in let's take in an Assassin's Creed. Let's take in Assassin's Creed 2. So I'm talking about these three games, and you do understand that when these games came out, they were triple A's, right?
yeah, yeah.
Do you think these kind of triple A's can't be made within 2 to 3 years in the present industry? Or is it because we are suffering from a certain like, oh no, the graphics need to be like this, oh the stuff needs to be like this, we need to put monetization or some other things, we need to have 1,000 planets. And I want that to be certain, because there is a controversy regarding that. What if Starfield was only 10 planets?
यार इसका मुझे लाइक व्हाट यू से उसका मुझे दो ही रिसेंट अच्छे एग्जांपल्स आ रहे हैं कि ना लाइक हाँ ऐसे गेम्स बने हैं. आई थिंक वन ऑफ देम, एंड दिस माइट साउंड वियर्ड, लेकिन एल्डन रिंग आई थिंक इज वन ऑफ दोस गेम्स जो मतलब जैसे यूबीसॉफ्ट का जो टुडेस अल्ट्रा पॉलिश्ड वाला वो नहीं है कि लाइक फास्ट ट्रैवलिंग एवरीवेयर एंड देन लाइक बीच का कुछ इतना मैटर नहीं करता, लाइक इट्स लाइक अ thoughtful game. It is a little old school in one way. It just feels like Makhan 60 पे चल रहा है. All the controls feel tight. कि it's not as clunky as a Fallout maybe. मुझे लगता है वो clunkiness maybe is not as possible. But you look at then another example is something like a Baldur's Gate 3. जो मतलब ना like it also has a very old school feel. I mean literally it's like isometric PC RPG. लेकिन it has those modernizations and अभी के time में it thrived so much, was in the conversation for so long. तो वैसे मुझे लगता है वैसे गेम्स, ऑन द अदर हैंड इफ यू लुक एट समथिंग लाइक अ जेडाई सर्वाइवर व्हिच आई रियली एंजॉयड, बट देन इट वाजंट इन द कन्वर्सेशन फॉर दैट लॉन्ग एंड इट हैड इश्यूज आल्सो, तो जो इट्स अ ग्रेट गेम व्हिच आई रियली लाइक, लेकिन वो नहीं सर्वाइव कर पाया. तो मे बी मतलब इन अ इफ वी स्कोप इट आउट इन अ डिफरेंट वे, I am curious. Maybe this is public knowledge. कि ना Elden Ring का budget कितना होगा? Like I mean that feels like a top tier AAA game,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and I don't know if it can be made for under 200 $150 million.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, the cost is definitely, one of those things. And I was just thinking that maybe, some AAAs could, lower the scope in order to,
Yeah.
get ahead of that development curve. And maybe also it's time to not have like again, I know some people might get angry at this because there are some people like only me 10 years back, I was like, oh, why isn't the game 100 hours? And now I'm personally looking forward to games which are 20 hours and, 25, 30 hours. Like there's a sweet spot to that. Maybe if we can hit that back again, have some particular, small sacrifices that we could make with either graphics or with the scope of the okay, it's an open world, it's not an open world, it's a hub, it's not a huge game and stuff like that. If we could make those small sacrifices, would people be still be okay with that kind of a thing? Because I feel the number of games and everything in the indie sector and the number of good games is increasing, but in the higher sector there's a huge chances of failure, like outright failure, because they are pursuing a mirage, like someone like Marvel Avengers or something like Suicide Squad. I think it came out yesterday that WB lost around $200 million for that
Oof.
game. Yeah. So if
Again,
the
like
parent company is struggling
when I
to
say
say
na
that.
कि like did this game need to be made? I mean, ये
Yeah.
नहीं होता तो nobody is like really missing out on anything. But Sushir, to your point, कि ऐसा game बनने के लिए, I don't know when why am I stuck?
It's a question that I have also like struggled with, because I am seeing the sparks of it in the indie space. I'm seeing people creating those smaller narrative worlds, maybe segmented. Even like a game like Dread Delusion, which
Yeah,
launched.
yeah,
I'm seeing the sparks of that, but then I'm like, would people still accept these kind of games if they had like lower graphics or not the biggest, bestest shiny things, or a
yeah,
open world which like takes like, I think nowadays people compare like how big an open world is, like someone would like take up the mantle of, oh, I walked the entire world in 10 minutes. It's a small game. So I think
yeah,
I can't get behind that train. I think even if it's 10 minutes, if that world is filled with things which can make me curious and make me wow, go wow, I think that's a job well done. But yeah, I do agree
I
to the fact that, you know, yeah, go ahead.
I figured out एक आंसर की मुझे दो एग्जांपल्स I एक Titanfall 2 I think is the
Yeah.
last time when I remember like when it felt new कि ना hey we're getting something new and it's a single player
Mm-hmm.
campaign also, जैसे Call of
Mm-hmm.
Duty का आया था in 2004 when Modern Warfare Call of Duty Modern Warfare 1 came out
Right.
the first time, तो same Titanfall 2 में था, but then you look at a recent example of something like Immortals of AVM,
Mm-hmm.
which looked great, felt like it like, I mean it was marketed so much हर event पे and it still
Yeah.
failed, and Titanfall also still failed, Titanfall 2 का campaign.
Right.
So I don't know, it feels कि it's weird, like the right answers feel कि you have to go as far as in like making a high quality game as maybe an Elden Ring or a Baldur's Gate 3, which also feel थोड़ा impossible to do.
Right. On that note, I'll also like talk about two, three other things. Number one, people talk about immersive sims and everything like that, and
Oh
there's a saying going around that there's the curse of the immersive sim.
yeah,
If you make a very good immersive sim, you're going to lose
yeah.
because people are not going to buy it. So those kind of things keep still floating, and because it's a very niche kind of an audience that plays those games, but the appreciation of this is way higher. I think the number of people who have played Prey, and the number of people who like Prey because of what they see in
Yeah,
videos and stuff is
it's very
very,
different.
very different.
Yeah.
Then of course comes up games like like the way you said, like Titanfall and stuff like that. There are other smaller niche games that don't do that well with numbers, but then are considered like pillars of their particular the genre. Like for example, the adventure game that you were playing, what was the name of in space?
Outer Wilds.
Outer Wilds, right? It's a
Yeah,
difficult proposition to make that kind of game, and then it's a difficult thing to market it, and then a very few people get to buy it and play it, right? So it's a very increasingly, smaller amount of people who get to that. Now think
Yeah.
of in
But
that
even like
risk.
Sushir is a
Yeah.
good example ki even in like the indie space to be like, I mean, Outer Wilds is like a indie terms it's a big hit.
Yeah.
Disco
Hit.
Elysium is
Yeah.
also like a big hit. But you have to be those then to like be that big hits, and yeah, the quality is also very high.
Yeah. Yeah. You need to outrun like 100 and 200, games releasing it with you in order to become that kind of a marquee hit.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I'll sell well. Now think, for example, a smaller studio. I'm saying smaller because I'm comparing it to other bigger studios, like the people behind Hitman, right? They made Hitman 3, and they made sure that Hitman 1 and 2 got incorporated in them. They made the whole game world of assassination and everything. They made it into some live service elements were there in it, like contracts and stuff like that. It, I feel it still sold a little poorly than what it should have.
Yeah.
Like, and taking that into account, I think there are certain learnings that they will take from these games and how they worked and take it into the James Bond game that they're going to make. Because
Yeah.
first of all, that's a thing that you've licensed, right? So some money needs to be paid out to them. And since you have taken the license, some money will be need to paid out to them. Uh, then, for example, you have this, and then, for example, you have every Marvel kind of game which comes out. You need to pay for those licenses. You need to make sure that those things are in place before you actually go and sell the product. I think there's a lot of things that the learnings that the audience, how they're voting with their wallet is coming up, but maybe those learnings are not in the right
Yeah.
faith.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree. Kina, like, I mean, even a lot of these companies have become very risk averse, no, with these big IPs, Marvel, ये सारे
Yeah.
games बना रहे हैं. Yeah, it really does suck. And अभी के time में ऐसा लगता है like जैसे like I mentioned before, जैसे something like a Bastion, Braid उस time पे, like those games
Yeah.
were in the conversation for months. I randomly remembered Fez. Remember Fez? Fez
Yeah.
जब आया था, I remember when the podcast that I used to listen to उस time पे, they would be talking about that game for months because I mean it was a great game, and there were like 10 other games to also like talk about, like you were loaded
Right.
with these games. Such a different time, man.
Yeah. And in those aspects also, if you see like how these learnings are changing other companies, like for example, GSC, right? The people out of Ukraine who made Stalker, and Stalker 2, there is going to be some form of multiplayer. That's what they've hinted long
Yeah.
time, right? They have the Ultimate Edition and they have the skins and stuff. It's hidden deep down, not hidden. I wouldn't say it's hidden. It just comes way below into the pecking order in which they try to show stuff. And then there is of course Metro. Yeah, I personally think Metro. They made a VR game. They made a spin-off and stuff like that. When the next Metro comes out, whether that game will survive only being a just Metro
Yeah.
itself, and whether it will sell those numbers, because last Metro got into a lot of flack because they partnered with Epic and
Oh,
they
yeah.
had that whole Alan Wake 2 is another game
Yeah.
that could not break even because of their partnership deal with Epic. So in those cases, even good games can be hobbled down because of the licensing deals or like relationships like this. I just feel that going forward too much into any particular game, developers and people who are creating should be very aware of how much that is going to sell, because that's a key marker whether you're going to get work ever again.
Yeah.
And I think just like WB said that, oh, it was Rocksteady's idea to pitch a live service game, but maybe the developers thought that if they didn't, they would not get to make another game.
Sushir, that's an excellent point. Na? When you mentioned Metro coming with a multiplayer mode and Stalker coming with a multiplayer mode,
Yeah.
Cyberpunk was also initially planned to come with a multiplayer mode. Maybe that helped
Right.
them get more funding, more stock value.
Right.
कि ना हम
Yeah.
ऐसा गेम बनाएंगे तो you can sell it कि ना ये और बिकेगा.
Mhm.
वैसा. Like yeah, it is true. You're right. कि maybe
And I
maybe
feel-
yeah.
Yeah, and I feel one of the reasons that they moved on from their own particular engine, which is a very risky thing to do. You have a huge chunk of people who can work on that engine and make great stuff, and you're
Yeah.
changing engines, and they moved on to Unreal. I personally think one of the reasons is that they wanted those ready online multiplayer components integrated into their
Oh.
product chain, so
Yeah.
that the next Cyberpunk can be something that they can compete with the GTAs. And this is what personally, my opinion, I'm not basing it out of anything that I've read. I've not read anything about like that on the internet. So it's not even a rumor. So it's just my feeling, gut feeling. One of the reasons that they changed was to integrate the multiplayer, aspect of it into their games.
Yeah, sounds believable. मतलब,
Yeah.
also maybe Cyberpunk के case में I would like to see that multiplayer, but yeah, you can see why like a lot of these things बाद में भी even though developer ने भी choose किया हो, they might feel कि हाँ we can probably make more money or be allowed
Yeah.
to even make this if we pitch a multiplayer.
Yeah. And Manas, when we do understand that like a game like GT.
So somebody was moving something.
Oh, okay. Sure, not on Earthquake or anything. Okay.
I don't know anything. Go on.
Yeah, and I should, Manas, we are at a particular juncture where some games do have the capability of moving the needle in terms of hardware sales. Like for example, whatever game becomes the marquee product for Nintendo to bring out their next Switch, that's going to sell gangbusters.
Yeah.
Whatever, when GTA 6 comes out, that is going to sell a shitload of PS5s or the PS5 Pro or whatever thing that is going to come out at that point of time. But not every game has that capability to move that needle in that sense. And at that point of time, many people might not like only buy GTA 6 and then not buy a game for maybe the next 3 months. And those things are also going to cause a little bit of a slowdown for other people in the industry.
Yeah. Yeah, नहीं, I can see that. And GTA 6 के बारे में तो already. 1 second.
Yeah, sure.
कुछ तो आंधी चल रही है.
Oh, but I think it might raining or something.
I think yeah, light तो चली गई अब.
Okay.
2 मिनट में wrap up करते हैं.
Sure.
Wait, what were you saying? I totally.
Yeah, GTA 6.
वो GTA 6 का या मैंने कुछ आर्टिकल पढ़ा था कुछ टाइम पहले कि GTA 6 might single-handedly revive the industry or something, and I can see that sentiment also कि like hey, more people are maybe active at that time playing, but I think yeah, like you said, it might actually affect कि ना I mean a lot of, in fact ऐसा तो immediately नहीं होगा कि more people will be playing more kinds of games क्योंकि a lot of games will clear the way, they'll delay themselves या आगे पीछे, they've done that before also, right? Red Dead के time पे Call of Duty did it, I think. They changed the date for Red Dead. So, yeah, I think it'll affect other games' sales.
Yeah. And the last point, I know this is something that was at the drop of a hat, but it's just sometimes that I have way too much shit to say. Last thing that I want to say is that we have been talking about the PC and the console market, but the biggest gaming market is out there right now on mobile. And we don't play that much on mobile. The out there, right? But look at the games that are being released on that platform. Those games are a showcase of what we are going to see the industry become. I think we are going to see the industry become riddled with free-to-play, freemium games, microtransaction ridden, ad ridden, and I think that's the lowest common denominator that developers are going to come to meet us at, because that's the shit that publishers can get to sell. Not a $60 game, not a $90 game. Those products might remain at that category, like a premium category, like, it'll be like one of those like Apple Plus or HBO Max kind of a thing. Like, oh, you want quality, you go for them.
Yeah.
But the bigger chunk of the developers would have to move towards these kind of games, because that's where the future lies.
Yeah.
And it's not a good future that I see.
Yeah, I think we're already seeing a little bit of that happen abhi se na, with a lot of free, like, I mean, every other game जो major announce हो रहा है, मुझे लगता है upcoming आ रहा है, Arena Breakout Infinite. That's
Arena Breakout Infinite. Yes, lot of extraction shooters are free to play.
And this one, जो X-Defiant आ रहा है, I think that will also be free to play. So yeah, I mean, you're already seeing a lot of this happen, and I think उसके वजह से एक चीज उल्टा भी हुआ है, which I think is kind of a good thing. जैसे when I then go and play a game like a Stellar Blade, जिसके बारे में कोई established IP नहीं है, कुछ नहीं है, and it feels old school in a way कि हाँ ये मतलब I would have expected to play like PS4, PS3 वाले time में, not in like a visual or any way, like or in a gameplay वाले way में, it feels like yeah, this is like a single player quality game that we're getting. I think in that way, like a game like that being able to stand out is also pretty positive.
Yeah, because the way the industry is going, good games are being made but not selling that much. Definitely the needle will move towards an overcorrection where we will see, yeah, okay, so if the freemium titles are what people want, then that is what they will
Yeah.
get. And lower barrier of entry but lower quality of games too. For example, we saw that creeping into like even the biggest Call of Duty too, right? Like Warzone and
Yeah.
everything,
Yeah.
those became free to play and access and stuff
Yeah.
like that. But there are like, oh, you want a skin, you want to be like Nicki Minaj or stuff like that, or you want to smoke a blunt. You can go Cheech and Chong. You can go be on Call of Duty and do that.
Yeah.
So games underselling and not finding the right audience, and or the audience not finding the amount of time to play these kind of good games will always result to this kind of a thing where we will move towards the lowest common minimum.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see किस direction में जाता है.
Yeah.
But we're always here to talk about it.
But a great man, like seriously, it was a good impromptu discussion that we had, and we decided not to call anybody else. So that is another of those things. But hey, back to you, Manas.
चलो विद दैट विल रैप इट अप. मैंने अभी रियलाइज किया कि मैंने इंट्रो में पॉडकास्ट का नाम वाम सब बोलना भूल गया एक्साइटमेंट टॉपिक के एक्साइटमेंट में. तो गाइस, यू वर वाचिंग प्रेस स्टार्ट टू प्ले, इंडियाज नंबर 1 पॉडकास्ट. माय नेम वाज मानस, दैट्स सुशीर.
Yeah.
We'll see you next time.